In this video I show you how I go from this prototype to making this 20 litre, half a pound day pack. The main materials I used are X-Pac VX21 for the back in black. I have details of ROBIC nylon. The green fabric is an X-Pac VX07, and the pockets are made from Silpoly, so they're very light and thin. Other than that, the zippers are HHH zippers from Korea, so they are really nice matte. And then I used an assortment of different buckles and webbing. This pack has been designed as a day pack for hiking, but also a city pack, so it's got a couple more features to keep my belongings safe. The main features: a zip top closure with an additional buckle. It has 2 shoulder strap pockets, a large pocket with a zipper at the front, and an additional pocket on top. And there are 2 side pockets for water bottles. I have compression straps on the sides and the sternum strap. It has no hip belt because it's not needed. I have a couple of designs that I worked on, and I made 2 initial prototypes. The first one is this, and the idea is very simple. It's very sleek, and I will probably make it one day. I won't talk about it too much, but I ended up going in a slightly different direction. The design I'm making is actually quite easy to upskill to a 40, 45, 50 litre backpack design. This is the first prototype. I am not actually going to make a second one. I'm just noting the changes on this pack. I spent quite a bit of time figuring out the torso length because my ultralight backpack that I made is a little bit, just a tiny bit too short, but at the same time I'm also attaching the shoulder straps higher so they don't need load lifters because it's just a day pack, which makes the whole thing different. And as you can probably see, I redid it a couple of times. Right now I feel like it works. I did actually start by putting a hip belt sleeve on here, but I'm not going to keep it because it's just not necessary. I'll be putting on the little pockets anyways because it's useful to have your phone on you even when you're just going out for a day hike. It will have side pockets. They will end up a little bit higher. I might not be able to reach for them while I'm walking, but that does mean that they're a little bit more secure. When I'm walking around town or anywhere near civilization, I get really paranoid about people stealing things from my pack. And obviously your usual ultralight hiking pack, everything is kind of open and people could technically reach in and grab things. So knowing that I'll use this in more civilized areas, I actually want to secure my things a little bit more. So the side pockets are a little bit higher, which is fine. The pack will be light and you can just kind of drop it to one shoulder and take out your water bottle. Then I will have a couple of pockets on the front. So I'm actually planning on having this bigger pocket on the front. The dimensions are going to change a little bit. They will be a little bit lower. It will stick out more because this is just too narrow. This isn't going to hold that much. This is how high this front pocket is actually going to be. The second one is going to be as high as the front of this side pocket. This will have a zip. This will be a simple elasticated pocket, and I will have a zip at the top. So it's going to be a little bit different. I have no idea how heavy it will be, and it doesn't really matter because it's a day pack. Either way, presumably it will be light. The materials I got are all really light. So right now I am going to take this backpack, and as I said, I've noted all of the changes on here, and I am going to turn this into a new pattern. Also, a quick preview of my fabrics from Ripstop by the Roll. I have these two different colors, X-Pac, the Rhino, and green. And I have all of this. These top ones are all fabrics that I can use for packs. At the bottom are fabrics for waterproofs. At the bottom is my tent. So we have quite a bit to look forward to. Before I start redoing this pattern, I thought I should show you what the pack looks like on me. I will have a sternum strap here actually. And this is it. It's very simple, small. The dimensions are largely based on this pack, a little bit smaller, and no extension sleeves. New and improved back panel. Not the most exciting bit, the easiest bit though. I actually made the patterns for the entire pack, taking into consideration all of the little things that I wanted to change. So I'll show you. This is the back panel. This is where I'll be attaching the shoulder straps at a slight angle. I will not be doing this hip belt sleeve. This is the old shoulder strap with a slightly different fixture point. But I used the shoulder strap for my through hiking pack, which works very well. I have the side panel, so it slants up and is a little bit wider at the top. This is the front panel, so I'm going to have a pocket at the top and a pocket at the bottom. This is the pattern for half of the pocket at the bottom, so this will be mirrored. I feel like I still can't figure out where exactly to attach the shoulder straps. I still don't know how long the torso really needs to be. It looks very top heavy, which makes sense when you're doing a through hiking backpack because of the weight distribution. The heavier weight should be at the top, so it makes sense for the top to be slightly wider. It seems to work for me at least. But for a day pack, you really don't need that. You're just going to have some stuff stuffed in there, mostly will be at the bottom. And it's not going to weigh that much anyways. So I actually think I'm going to kind of restitch this backpack so it's straight and it doesn't taper out, and see if maybe it looks a little bit better. It just looks a bit, it looks a bit off. It just looks like my old backpack, my Mount Laura designs, which I loaded up too heavy and this torso was a little bit too short for me, and it was just kind of falling backwards. It didn't work out for me, and it kind of looks similar, and it's just a little day pack. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. So I am going to restitch it. I'm going to essentially turn the pack back into a square and see whether it looks any better. A couple of changes. I attached the shoulder straps a little bit higher, which means the pattern is going up from here to there. And it makes the shoulder strap a little bit shorter because I'm not actually extending the shoulder strap, just attaching it higher. I also like the new pattern, which is a bit more straight, a bit more rectangular. So I'm going to take out these tapered ends and I'm redoing the patterns. I have finished the patterns that I was working on yesterday. This is the pack, and I updated all of the patterns with the right extensions, the correct shoulder strap attachment point, so it's gone up by about 35 mil. And these are the front pockets. So everything is ready. I'm happy now. The next thing to do is to choose fabrics. And choosing fabrics is going to be very difficult because I have these. This is some X-Pac VX21 in black. That's left over from my previous pack. I have some light skin, some VX07 in olive color, X-Pac VX15 rhino color. These are all half yards. These are from Ripstop by the Roll. And then I got these bits and bobs. This is some Silpoly, so it's a very thin fabric, and I was actually thinking about using this for the pockets. So as it's going to be a day pack, it can be very light, it doesn't need to carry much weight, it can be very fine and have a different kind of aesthetic to it. This is some thicker white gritstop fabric, and I have one in olive. This is a ROBIC ripstop fabric. So again, I have an olive color and a black, and I'm thinking about mixing two of these colors. I'm actually going to use a black, probably the VX21 for the back panel, because I don't want to waste the nice expensive fabrics in the nice colors for anything that you don't actually see. So I'm going to use VX21 as a base. I'm thinking about mixing two fabrics together, so I'm quite keen on trying the Silpoly as a very thin material, and I might mix it with the olive VX07. I thought it might be interesting to discuss the different X-Pacs because these are such interesting and popular fabrics to use right now. And you have the VX07, VX15 and VX21, and I actually happen to have all three right here. And just to explain to people, because I would have liked to know this before I bought these, the difference. This is VX21. It feels like a fabric that's laminated onto whatever this is. It's like a woven fabric. It's very supple, and I really like the VX21, and it's still very lightweight. Don't think that it's heavy at all. Obviously 07 is going to be lighter, 15 is going to be in between. Here you have the VX15. On the black one, it's like a raised area, and on the 15, like a grey pattern, as though it's printed on it. But the fabric is still very much woven. It's definitely thinner. The 07, however, the 07 doesn't feel like it's woven anymore. It feels like it's paper. It's still laminated. I do absolutely love these two colors. The olive and the rhino are actually gorgeous colors. So that means this fabric and that fabric together. I'm also keen on doing a very clean scheme and having this white gritstop with the Silpoly. I feel like I need some color in there. I love this light skin, but I think it's not the right fabric for this particular backpack. The rhino is cool too. The rhino would look good with this material. Maybe I should do the rhino. I have too many grey backpacks. I'm going to sit here and think about these colors. Since I can't make up my mind, I think I just have to go with my very original idea, which is green. Because I have this thing for green things nowadays. I have a green chair, green. I have like all of these plants. Okay, so we're going green. It's a little bit crazy. So now I need to actually take the patterns and I'm going to annotate on it which parts are going to be the black VX21 and which bits are green and which bits are the Silpoly. Back panel, shoulder strap, attachment point. This is going to be green, this top bit, and the bottom will be black. Something happened to my scissors. They get stuck. Don't know how to fix this. Anybody knows how to fix scissors? Let me know. I am dividing materials. So we have the back panel and the bottom panel, which will be black. The shoulder strap will probably be black. I might change my mind at the last minute. I guess it depends on how many of the nice olive green I end up using, whether I want to waste more material. This right now is olive green. Well, saying that, the top of the back panel is olive green. The top of the front panel is olive green because the pockets will be Silpoly. And you can't actually, even though it's really thin when it comes to just making this pack, you can't see through. So that will all be black. The side panel, most of it will be green. This is the line of the side pocket, and this bottom bit will be black. These are the patterns for the front pockets and the side pocket, so they will be Silpoly. Next task is to transfer the patterns onto the fabrics. I decided to attach the back panel to the bottom panel because I realized that without a hip belt sleeve I don't need this seam. So this is turning into one huge, it stops here, one huge panel in VX21. The exciting bit. Green. Yeah, so 2 side panels. The top section of the back panel and the top section of the front panel. If I can give any advice on anybody making packs, is before you start cutting your expensive fabric, recheck your pattern, because I almost started cutting this and at the last minute decided to check the pattern because I made some small changes in the back panel, and it's really difficult to lose track of how those changes translate to the side and front panels, and if I had cut it I would have wasted fabric. So I checked it and I re-sketched it, and now I'm ready to cut my precious green VX07. Pretty. It appears that transferring patterns onto Silpoly is very difficult. The fabric is thin. This chalk doesn't really stick that well, so it's taking some time. It's another day of fabric cutting. Somehow cutting fabric takes up a lot of time. I did the most important things yesterday. So I've cut this back panel out of VX21. I have the green sections. I have the front pockets from the Silpoly. And now I'm looking at cutting the fabric underneath the pockets and underneath the side pocket, which you can't actually see. And I was going to use the VX21, but I'm running low on this fabric and I want to preserve it for different backpacks. So I have decided to use this ROBIC nylon, which is pretty cheap, and I have a half yard of it. Using my old shoulder straps as a template, slightly adjusted, just making sure my fade will fit in the shoulder pockets. Annoyingly, I have wasted fabric again. 2 of these precious bits of elastic pocket material. I'll show you what happened just so that you don't do the same thing. This is my shoulder strap. This bottom bit, this blue section, is where I'm going to attach my pocket, and it's exactly the same design as the one I did for my ultralight backpack because I like it. It's very simple. And it's essentially just elasticated fabric. So what I did is that I overlaid it and I marked it with chalk and I cut it. Even though I knew that I need to make the fabric just a little bit wider, so the pocket is just a little bit wider than the shoulder strap itself. So what I should have done is this overlay it, essentially create this little rectangular shape around it, and cut that, but I didn't. So the idea is that at the bottom of the material we'll have little pleats, and it just creates a little bit more space for putting things inside. But for some reason once I started, I knew that was my plan, but once I started chalking I just completely forgot. Don't do what I did. This is a bit boring because I am starting off sewing the shoulder straps, the shoulder strap pockets, and I already did that for the last pack. So it's a bit of repetition, it's nothing exciting. I am starting by sewing the elastic band to the top of the pockets, and I haven't cut the pocket out of the fabric yet because I think it's going to be a little bit easier to just to sew this top strip. So I'm gonna do that first. There we go. Two pockets. Well, two bits of elasticated fabric that will be turned into pockets. Pockets. Little flap to allow for the sternum strap underneath. I'm going to put that one on top. That's the bottom of the shoulder strap. I have sewed part of it together now. These pieces are going to be sewed inside the seam of the shoulder strap, allowing me to have access to the sternum strap underneath. So next step is to sew this onto the shoulder strap below along this seam line. One side of one shoulder strap is finished. Except for the webbing that needs to be attached underneath here for the sternum strap. I just realized that I completely forgot I was going to add some detailing to these shoulder strap pockets. So my idea was that this is a day pack that I will be using day hiking, but realistically I'll also use it walking around town, which means that I don't want people to be able to take things out of the pockets. So I'd actually done these sketches and I should have opened up my sketchbook before, because I was going to try and do one of two things. So I had two ideas for securing the top of the shoulder pocket. So basically up here I was going to have a line lock closure or to use a T-bar, which will be strung through a little piece of cord. So I was just looking at this and I can still do it. I just need to decide what I want to do. This seems to work. We have cords. So this is some webbing, cords, This is supposed to be a sternum strap, or a sternum strap will be attached to this point, but I have an improvised design because I couldn't find a nice sternum strap. I'm not sure how practical it is, but I do like adding a different detail to this design. If anybody can tell me what you should do to the ends of these kind of cords. This is just one of those 3mm tent, reflective 10 cords. I cinched the ends and it's horrible. So if anybody has any advice, please let me know. I want to finish the shoulder straps before I move on to something else. And I am going to do it just a little bit different from how I did it last time. So this is the front panel, this is the back panel, this is 3D spacer mesh, it's I think 3mm. And then I have 4mm EV50 foam. I am going to actually do a bar tack just along this top bit. It's not continuing in the bottom part because it doesn't need it, but I'm actually fixing this onto the front panel first, rather than fixing the front and the back panels and then inserting the foam. My sewing machine does not enjoy really thick layers of foam. So hence a vertical bar tack along here, and then I will try to attach the back panel and see if I can successfully invert the entire thing. Just checking my bar tack size, location of my bar tack. This is surprisingly good looking. Look at what that does in the back and the front. So now that's one, and now I need to do the other one. And two. I am very worried about sewing these 3 layers: foam, front of shoulder strap, back side of shoulder strap, and I'm going to sew it all the way around and then try and invert all of these layers. I sewed one of them. And now I have to try and invert it. First, I'll trim down the seams just a little bit because they are a little bit big in a couple of places. I trimmed the seams and I trimmed the interior foam a little bit as well, so there's more space for everything when I turn it around. So here we go. Alright, the pressure of doing this on the camera is too much for me. I'm gonna shut this down And I'll take the next hour to try and pull this out, and I'll update you when it's done. I have another slight update. We have this. We have a slightly longer tube. I'm standing up right now. I need to be standing up while I try and invert this thing. We have one inverted shoulder strap. That's a nightmare to do. The shoulder strap is also very narrow, which I knew it was going to be. It's purposely more narrow than the first one I did. Just wondering if it's too narrow. It's just a day pack, so it doesn't need to be massive. That was my thinking. The other one is very wide to make it more comfortable. Let's see if it fits my phone. This line lock is not useful when you're not actually wearing it. Does just about fit my phone, which is good. It's a little bit tight. There we go. Shoulder strap number 1. I finished my shoulder straps yesterday, but then something happened. The second one I did, when I was turning the shoulder strap inside out, I somehow managed to rip loose the internal foam, and it ended up bunched up, and I tried to squeeze it back in, and I realized it was upside down and ripped loose. This is what happened. Instead of redoing the shoulder strap, I actually decided to take it out of the other one as well. Hence 2 bits of internal foam. When I first started to design this day pack, I was actually thinking about not putting in the internal foam, because I've got the 3D spacer mesh, which is about 3mm thick anyways. The VX21 is obviously a very solid material. I didn't think for a day pack it was all that necessary to add an additional layer of foam. In the end, I did it just for comfort reasons, but I think it would be a good opportunity to try without and see what it feels like so I can test it. So I took out the foam. I'm not worried about it, but something else happened. I actually started thinking about a new design for this pocket. So obviously you can see that I added the line lock for extra security, which I think is a cute little feature. But I started thinking about actually trying out a new design for this pocket, which is similar to the side and the front pocket design. And I might actually make a second pair of shoulder straps to try out another design, and then I will see which shoulder strap I'll actually attach to the pack. I did a couple of very quick sketches for another shoulder strap pocket idea, and it's basically just a thin fabric with an elasticated top and some security at the top part of it. Here you go. And I might try this with the Silpoly that I have. Shoulder straps, take 2. I'm back to being indecisive about colors again. Should I make them black like the original ones, or should I go for this lovely rhino? I'm trying to figure out this front pocket here. There we go. If we make it this big, would it be a nice size when it's finished with an elasticated top? I think I'm going to have to do a prototype first. This is a very basic prototype, but it does show that it kind of works. This is how it sits. This triangle should be a little bit bigger, but in theory, it works. So I think I'm happy enough to try it. Amend it a little bit and then do it with the real fabric. I decided to work on this pattern for this pocket a little bit more because this shoulder strap is not straight, and making a pocket out of a rectangular piece of fabric makes it a little bit crooked. So I'm taking the original pattern and I'm going to cut it in half, open it up to create more fabric for the pleating, and I'm going to use that as a pattern. This is the amount of extra fabric that I want. I'm adding 55 mil, which is what I did for the other prototype. This is a much better way of doing it. This is how you should be enlarging your patterns. Right now, the original shape has stayed intact, which means that I can do this, straighten up the top. The bottom is straight already. This is what it looks like, and this is what I will use to create this pocket. Yesterday I worked on my second shoulder strap pocket design, and I actually really like it. These are the two versions that I did. The first one is very similar to my original shoulder strap pocket design. It just has an additional security at the top. It is made with an elasticated fabric, elasticated top, and a line lock with cord and webbing. And then I just had this idea to do a different design which kind of mimics the pockets at the front and side of this daypack. And it is made with a really nice thick ROBIC nylon. It has a band at the top with elastic strung through it, some webbing, a tiny buckle, and I actually think it looks really cute. So this is how you open it up. You can put a phone in here. It's big enough for my phone at least, and then you close it again, which is easier with two hands. But so I am going to film making the second pocket now. I didn't film yesterday because it was all a bit messy. There were so many different messy chalk lines on the fabric I was using because I was changing the pattern. These are the first items that we need to make this pocket. This 3D mesh is for the back. I'm using different colors, X-Pac. So this is the top, which goes up until this point. As you can see, the pocket is half integrated. Let me show you that in more detail. The pocket is attached with a tiny bit of webbing here. It is loose here, and there is a piece of webbing in the middle for a sternum strap. There is a small piece of webbing again here, and it's attached at the bottom, and on that side it's integrated in the shoulder straps. So these are the different pieces. This is the part of the pocket design that will overlay, and it will be stitched onto this panel here. So it's attached, but it will be able to open on that side for access to the sternum strap webbing. And then this is the bottom bit, which will hold this little ladder lock. And now I am first going to cut the pattern for the front pocket design for this bit. This is the pattern for the pockets. I have added an extra 10 millimeters here, and this will be folded, and it will be folded so that I can actually hide this string in between. As you can see here, it sits on the outside, but it's hidden by the seam. So I'm going to fold around the webbing so it sits concealed. And these are the 2 points where I'm going to attach these bits. I cut these at an angle. I didn't do any specific angle, I just kind of did whatever looked good. And it seems to work on that one. I did it exactly the same. So I'm going to attach this here and fold this fabric around it. Now I am going to fold this to create a sleeve for the elastic band. I am simply going to turn it around and secure it here. And you will see the row underneath, which is a little bit messy, but it's on the inside of the pocket so you can't see it. It's a bit too much work to clean it all up. 2 bar tacks, and I have a seam running along the edge here. I actually managed to cover quite a bit of the inside, which is nice. Next step is to add the elastic band. I have the shoulder strap, the back side of the pockets, the front of the pocket. I'm going to take these and fix these on that side only. This is going to be fixed along that line so that it's possible to still access the sternum strap, which will be behind here. So we have a half integrated shoulder strap pocket. So it will be like this. Now I'm going to attach 2 bits of webbing here and here. So this pocket is attached along that side, along the bottom. It's open here except for the top, and about 2 inches from the bottom there will be another bit of webbing. So I'm going to attach this side first and add the 2 bits of webbing here and here. I replaced the pins with a couple of quick stitches within the seam allowance, just so I don't hurt myself while I try and put this together. So this will be as such, therefore. For some reason I kept chalking the right side of the fabric instead of the inside of the fabric, which means that I can't properly see where my seam line actually should be, but that's okay. This pocket is the wrong way around. Why did I spend hours making this the wrong way around? I hate shoulder straps. Okay, So just pretend I did not make this thing inside out. And then we'll fast forward and pretend this never happened. Okay, I was probably being a little bit dramatic because I managed to make a new one. And it really didn't take that long. Here we have a pocket. These will be sewn into the sides. And then the bottom and the side will be sewn first. And we'll have to sew this right there. So it's half attached and half not attached. I will be adding just a little top stitch along the inside here, just to keep it flat because it gets a bit bulky. I've chalked markings where I'm going to do bar tacks and attach certain things. And now I'm going to attach the back side of the pocket. This is how this will work. Attached. Access to sternum strap. There you go. I'm going to put the sternum strap in first. I wanted to round up where we are right now with this shoulder strap design. I'm going to be working on this bottom attachment, little buckle, this ladder lock today. But I wanted to show you the shoulder strap first. So we have our tiny buckle, webbing, some bar tacks. The pocket is attached at the bottom and the side here. And then we have webbing for the sternum strap. So it's half attached from this corner to that bottom corner. And I'm now going to sew in this bit of webbing, that bit of webbing, and then this will happen. I'll obviously sew this inside out. First I will attach this. We have a little bit of webbing to attach here, which will be a loop for the buckle and the extra loop at the top. So I've got the markings ready here. So it's almost finished. This little one is attached, so now we can attach this to that. I added a few quick stitches, which I like to do just to secure things in place before I properly stitch everything together. So I added little stitches within the seam allowance here, just to kind of make sure that this is in the right place. Same up here. I've turned this up on the other side so that the webbing doesn't fold over. I am going to attach these bits of webbing now at the top. Alright, here we go. I put a couple of bar tacks on the webbing to create these loops. shoulder strap is finished. I'm going to turn this inside out now. Wish me luck. I am not going to film this struggle. We have 2 shoulder straps. I'm going to add a couple of bar tacks, which will hopefully kind of help flatten the shoulder strap as well. So I've got one here, I've got a small one underneath here, and I am going to add one underneath this bit of webbing, just to kind of, you know, attach all of these layers to each other. And when that's done, the shoulder straps are done, and I can move on to the next task. That was a massive project doing these shoulder straps, especially since I did 2 versions, but it's nice to have something new out there and try a different design. I do like how they turned out. Today I'm going to continue working on the front pockets, which will be an interesting exploration as the material is Silpoly and it's very thin and slippery. I'm just making the side panels first because they have the green X-Pac at the top and then a cheaper ROBIC fabric, ROBIC nylon at the bottom. The side pocket will sit a little bit above here, so I'm just going to sew this together. This is one side panel done. There we go. I'm creating a sleeve for this elastic band, but this Silpoly is very slippery. I'm going to do this. However, I'm thinking about actually first stitching a line here, just so it stays flat, then turning it over and stitching this line. Scrap that. It will create too many seam lines that will be visible. To be honest, what I should have done is cut this off at the top and create a separate band of fabric that I could sew around. I think for now I'll just sew one stitch line down here and I'll insert the elastic band. This is not perfect, but I'm going to put the elastic band inside . This is kind of cute. I actually really like it. Not sure which side to use. I actually thought that this was going to be the inside, so you just see this one stitch line, and then that will be the outside, but I think it should be the other way around. Small addition. I just added a drainage hole on the side. So when I attach this to the side panel, there will be a little gap where, you know, water can drain. First task is to sew these side seams, and then I will have to figure out how to ruffle the bottom of this pocket nicely. I'm going to be sewing right next to the actual seam line, because when I sew this panel onto the front and back panels, I don't actually want to see that there's two seam lines. The inside, the side panel, and the outside. I'm actually quite enjoying these crazy colours. So I'm going to play with this bottom ruffle now. I realised that I had given the fabric too much of a curve at the bottom, too much extra fabric to create more space, and I don't need it, so I'm just going to get rid of some of this excess fabric. That looks good. That's a cute pocket. I like that. Here we go. Two side panels. They have drainage holes, elasticated tops. So on the inside we have black fabric, and then the VX07 at top. Next up is this top pocket. It's essentially just a rectangular shape, and it will be made exactly the same as the side panel pocket, so that will be easy. That was very quick. Another pocket done. Now we are going to do something a little bit trickier, which is this pocket. It will have a zip going across here. It's got pleats bigger than the ones on this prototype. So this is the front. There will be two pleats, and I'm preparing the back side to have a couple of stitches to keep them in place. The fabric is very slippery and thin, and I'm not going to iron it. One, I don't have an iron, and two, I'm not entirely sure this fabric could take ironing. It can probably take low heat, but I'd rather not. I'm thinking of adding some stitch lines to the pleats at the top as well. The front pocket is starting to take shape. We have the pleats. I have secured them with stitches to the back. I am not going to do stitches at the front because I think it will look messy. It's going to get a little bit tricky now. I have the top of this pocket bit. It's essentially this. We have a zip. The zipper is really pretty. It's a waterproof HHH zipper, which is from South Korea. They are matte black, very good looking. It was very easy to attach the slider to the coil. I purchased a couple of yards of the zip, so you get these separate. So this zipper is going to be sewn in. I'm going to cover the ends with a little bit of black fabric. Alright, 2 bits of fabric are attached to the ends of the zip. Here and here. So now I'm going to continue to sew the fabric onto the zip. Sewing this zip is not easy. It took several tries. As you can see, there's a couple of different stitch lines because I didn't get it right. So my original plan was to actually have a stitch line on the outside here, but the zip just keeps slipping away and I can't actually get a straight stitch. It seems to be impossible. I'm just securing the pleats with an extra stitch line. And I would like to point out that I just realized I'm using the wrong threads. I have been using this Gutermann Terra 60, which is great for backpacks and thick materials and X-Pac and everything that I've been using. But I actually got this Gutermann Terra 80, which is a little bit thinner for all of these thinner materials, and I actually should have used that for the Silpoly because it's so thin. I sewed my front pockets. I thought I wasn't going to do an extra stitch line at the top and the bottom here because I was struggling to do it, but I think I have to because otherwise this fabric is just going to cover the zip and it's going to get caught in it and it's going to cause issues. So I think I need to try and do this. I'm going to put in the Terra 60 threads and I'm going to try it with that. This stitch line is not bad. I went really slow. I did notice at the start on this side, you can see that it's a little bit further from the ends, but it still looks good. So now I need to do the top side. The top is a little bit tricky, so I'm just going to try and do it somewhere along the middle. I just cleaned it up and I think it looks good. You have no idea how much of a struggle it was to sew this top stitch. Doesn't look amazing, but I think I need to secure it, so I have to do the same on the other side now. And then this pocket is pretty much done. Finished. I'm not sure whether these top stitches have ruined it, but it looks quite good. I am adding some webbing loops, and I'm realizing that actually this VXL7 is so thin that my thread, the Terra 60, the thicker one, and my needle is actually leaving a huge hole in the fabric. So I have switched back to the thinner thread. So I put in the Terra 80, and I also swapped the needles to, I'm gonna try the 8012. I was using 9014 for the Terra 60, so it's a slightly smaller needle, and I might go down one more if it still proves to be too fat. I have added little webbing loops on the side panels. I'm going to add elastic cords to be able to tighten the pack. I didn't do this on my first backpack because I never use these things, because my pack is always full. But because this is a small pack and this is a day pack, I think it could use with a little bit of compression at the top. So there will be a little Z-shaped compression strap on the sides. Also, how do we feel about this color combination? I mean, I have no idea how I feel about this. I thought it was a good idea. I think it looks cute. Still not sure. I think it's nice. It's interesting, let's put it that way. This will be my next step. I'm going to finish the front panel. This is the top bit of it, the bottom bit. We have the top pocket, which will sit somewhere around here, so I'll attach that. And then we have the bottom pocket. So I'm going to finish that, sew it all together. I just marked the four corners of where this top pocket stops and starts. I'm going to overlay it, and I'm just going to top stitch the edges around it. This bottom bit, I am actually just going to overlay the bottom pocket on this. I'm not going to create any seams because it doesn't really fray, and it's just going to sit here. This is how I'm going to sew it. I have a couple of pleats at the bottom just to keep it simple, and that's it. I'm about to attach the top side of the pocket first. This is really the first time that I can see what these pockets look like. Because the original one, the pockets weren't as deep as these were, so I make them a lot deeper. And this is it. So that's a lot of storage space actually. It looks very fragile, but it is Silpoly. I mean, technically it's a tent rainfly. So I'm hoping that it's not going to snatch on something and tear. But I do like the way it looks. So now I can start putting the panels together. This is me trying to figure out a closure system. I am going to put a zipper along the top, but I actually want to add some webbing, and I'm thinking of doing it like this. I have decided on the fixing, so this is actually attached to the inside of this pocket. As you can see here. So this will be strung over the zipper, which will be at the top of the pack. And it will attach to the back panel with this tiny D-ring. But before we do that, I am going to attach the zipper at the top first. We are back to playing with fancy Korean zippers. I'm just going to attach this. There's nothing too difficult about it. Finally. Okay, I am going to cover the ends with a little bit of fabric. Just to kind of secure the end of the zipper. I did the same on these sides here. I stitched one side of the zip. I added a top stitch along the bottom, and I realized I don't actually like it. I should have sewn it much closer to the top edge, but I can't undo it because this X-Pac is like paper. The holes that are in there now will be seen forever. So something to remember for next time. I did this wrong. The zip is supposed to span not just the front panel and the back panel, but it's supposed to continue along the side panels. This zip is supposed to continue along this side panel, which will sit like this, and it will end down here and create these pointed ends. So I did this completely wrong, and I need to take out that top stitch I don't like anyways and put in a new zip. This is why you need to be careful. Don't do what I did. Look at these holes. I'm trying to be a little bit more technical about how long this zipper should really be and what happens at the end. So I'm calculating exactly in plan where the fabric is going, how long the zip needs to be, because it folds over at the ends. It's all a little bit tricky, but I think I have it. And apparently the zip needs to be 283 millimeters, 0.75. I thought it was time for one of these views, since the pack is close to being done. Just to explain, once again, we have the back panel with this at the top. These will be attached as such. And this back panel turns into the bottom panel, which is this bit here. These are the front and side panels. We have a side panel with little webbing for the compression strap. There is a side pocket with a little drainage hole at the bottom. We have these little rectangular shapes that links up to the shoulder straps. I basically just did a very simple shape. There's an opening here for the webbing because I'm not quite sure which webbing to use yet. We have the front pocket, which has a lovely zip. Another pocket at the top. With some webbing attached within the seam. And this will link to the other side of the pack. That will link up with this tiny D-ring. And this is the final zipper, which has not yet been attached because it attaches across all of the panels, and I think I need to sew the pack at least partially together before I can add the zip. I haven't really mentioned it since, but I still wanted to show the first shoulder straps that I made. They are also ready, but I am definitely preferring these shoulder straps because they are a lot more different from the first pack that I made, and I kind of like adding the color to it. I'm just marking where I'm going to attach these little triangular shaped things. This line is the bottom of the back panel. This is the bottom panel, so I'm just marking the bottom here. So that means that I can place this little triangle down here. I'll stitch it within the seam lines again, so it's just kind of attached without causing any double stitching on the actual seam. So I'll do that. I might place it about 1 centimeter higher than the bottom. Here we go. I'm changing my mind on what to attach first. I was going to do the zip, but I'm going to do the shoulder straps first. Attach the shoulder straps to the back panel. Then I'll start to put the rest of the pack together. I remember from last time that this was a very frustrating job and I kept redoing it and changing my mind about which part to attach first. I have these pieces. I'm just going to attach this like that. Ultimately, I'll have to turn this around and this essentially will be stitched to the back, and I will have to create a couple of pieces on the inside and outside to hide the stitches First, I mark the fixing points on the outside of the fabric. So this is where that one is going to be. Okay, this is how it's going to sit, and I will sew these together. I'm just looking at this attachment point, and I don't know why, but for some reason whenever I make my shoulder straps, they end up slanting out like this, which I don't think makes sense. Like, there should be a reason why people don't make shoulder straps like this. Like, usually they're attached a bit more straight, or sometimes they even like angle in. So I'm actually thinking about adjusting this and just make it a little bit straight like this. So just kind of attach it as such and see what happens. I just tried it out on this thing and I kind of adjusted these a little bit to see what it feels like, and it seems to not really make that much of a difference. My way feels more comfortable. I don't get these shoulder straps. Honestly, it just doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. So I've attached the shoulder straps to the pack in like slight different angles, and it all kind of feels the same. I mean, I just did this, which is a lot more angle than it was, and this is how some people attach their shoulder straps, and that kind of feels fine too. So I just really don't know anymore. I'm just trying this here. It's attached at the same point on the pack, but that's the old angle. I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit. Here we go. Old angle, new angle. It's a 50mm difference, so this will be a little bit less awkward on the pack. This is attached inside the seam lines. Number 1, number 2. And I am going to now attach this on top of it on the actual seam lines. So yeah, that will look like this. I have a tip for you. Do not create a pattern with all of these different angles, because this is turning into a mess, especially with this VXA7, which is like paper. I might undo that part, try and sew it again, see if I can get it to sit flat. If anything, do two angles and not 3, which makes no sense. I'm starting fresh. This backpack is a day pack, so it's never going to have more than 10 pounds in it at most. So I am going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to simplify it. Okay, if I stitch this here, then I can just do a top stitch and attach this top panel. I would get a little piece of fabric to cover this, and I will obviously do a couple of bar tacks or rectangular boxes to properly stitch in the shoulder straps. Step 1 completed. One step further, I did quite simple stitches, just a bar tack zigzag stitch here. This is a little messy, but it doesn't matter, and then a couple of stitches on top of each other. I've got this panel which will cover it. I'm going to top stitch it here and along all the other sides. Now I'm going to turn this around and top stitch this. Inside, outside. Now it's finally time to top stitch this section along here. So even though this worked out for me and I like the way it looks, it does mean that because I attached these bits of webbing to the green part, it's now facing the wrong direction, and I might have to unpick it and restitch it underneath this black panel. I restitched these little bits of webbing, so now I can once again attach this one. Finally, we are done. Yes! I am first going to attach this because it's going to need like a top stitch, and I don't think I can do that once the entire pack has been put together. So I'm going to put the pack together first and then I'll do the zip last. I'm just turning this around to create a second stitch down here, a little top stitch. And what I did, because there's all of these layers of messy fabric, there is the backing, obviously the back panel fabric, and then all of this pocket fabric. I folded some of this fabric so that I can now create a clean stitch along here and it doesn't look too messy on the inside. So this is the cleanest and simplest way I can kind of clean this up without, you know, binding anything or adding more fabric to the pack. I should probably mention this, but when you do a stitch like this, you should really not stitch it from the inside of the pack, which is what I did, because I don't know about your machine, but my machine, the top side of the stitch always looks better than the underside. So right now, essentially, the nice stitch, which is that one, is on the inside of the pack, and on the outside, see, it looks a little bit more crooked. I redid it and it definitely looks better stitched from the outside. This is the mess of the final stages. I am not looking forward to sewing this. Quite happy with these stitch lines. Look at that. Looks pretty nice. Quite clean. So that's the front side of the pack. And as you can see, the back side is not yet fixed, so that will be next. It's almost finished. I say almost, but it will still take some work. We have, well, pretty much the entire things here. There are 3 things that I need to do. One is decide whether or not I actually want to do a top stitch here. I technically do want to do one along these 2 sides, but I just don't know whether it's going to fit in my sewing machine. And because this X-Pac 07 crinkles so much, don't know whether I want to force it inside the machine. That's one. 2 is place a zipper on top, which will be the same zipper as this, HHH waterproof zipper. And 3 is the small task of attaching webbing to these little triangles. Okay, I genuinely don't see this top stitch happen on this side of the pack. I know I did it for the last pack, but somehow this one I just don't know how to maneuver it under the sewing machine. When it's a sack, I don't know how to go any further than say this much. So I'm going to leave the top stitch for the back panel, which is fine, but I am going to just put an extra stitch right next to the original seam. I'm going to double stitch it, you know, just for extra security. I think one of these days it will be interesting to look at binding seams like most ultralight companies do, because it does make everything look a lot neater, especially now that I've got all of these layers. And this Silpoly, for example, which is sandwiched in the middle from the pockets, it does fray a bit. The ROBIC nylon frays a tiny bit. Yeah, it frays, you can see here. So it will be interesting to actually bind the edges. It's not necessary, but it will look nice. It will make me feel better about the pack because it will feel more finished. But that's for next time. We are going to continue with the zipper. Got 1 stitch down. I might add another one for security, and just because this one is a little bit too close to the edge. I'm just looking at the detailing of the ends here. I'm going to add a bit of webbing, and the only way I managed to do it is if I just insert this at the end. Basically I should have attached this to the end of the zip previously, but I didn't, so I can now insert this and I would just stitch this shut. And I also need to still add a top stitch here, and then I would do the same on the other side. I have a slightly crooked bar tack. I did not manage to continue the seam all the way into the corner, but it works. I think this means that it's almost finished. Okay, I am going to attach these little ones, and yeah, then I'll have to put something inside of it and try it out. Despite everything that I bought, there's a lot of webbing, a lot of buckles, and this is the webbing I had for my last pack, which is a little bit on the thin side, but it's nice webbing. This time when I put in my order, I decided to go for a couple of different types of webbing. I have thicker webbing, which is way too thick, and thinner webbing, and it's really just quite thin. So I've actually decided to add the really ugly polypropylene webbing that I got a while ago, which was kind of a mistake. This turned into a tiny triangle, which works, and it will be easy to unpick if I get some nicer webbing and want to replace it. I've taken this pack out walking twice now, and I really like it. It's very comfortable. The shoulder straps, I was a little bit concerned that they were too short, but they're not. They actually fit really well, so I don't need to extend them. It's obviously very basic design. There's no load lifters, so they sit higher than they would on my other pack, which works really well. All of my closures for extra security are a little bit overkill. I like the design of this shoulder strap pocket, for example. It definitely works when you're walking. It's definitely possible to do it. When you're wearing gloves, this would be a pain. You wouldn't want to close this, but it's definitely a nice little added bit of security for using this pack as a city pack. I do wish I made the pockets just a tiny bit bigger, because actually when I put my phone in them, it sticks out just a couple of millimeters, which really annoys me, so people can actually see that there's a phone in there. But it's fine, it's just about big enough. It does fit my phone, which is, you know, the main purpose. But I would definitely make it just a tad bigger next time. The closure at the top, this detail is completely overkill. It's actually a little bit annoying. And I like the way it looks, but I really don't need it. And I might actually take it off at one point. I don't know yet. But it works. The zippers are amazing. I love these Korean HHH zippers. They are just absolutely beautiful. One thing I would change is the materials for the side pockets. Silpoly, I really like it, and it's such a nice different feel on the backpack, and it's strong but it's very light. I like how it holds shape with the zip in it. But for the side pockets, it looks a little bit messy when you actually put a bottle in here. So it sort of shapes around the bottle too much. It just doesn't keep shape well enough. I would probably use the ROBIC nylon for the side pockets. And different elastic, it stretches a little bit. So I would get really sturdy elastic. And second of all, I noticed that when I carry a bottle in the side pockets, this piece of elastic inside starts to turn around, and I think it's a good idea to add a bar tack on top of the elasticated band in the middle of this. Another thing that I have mentioned before is the VX07. I really love the color, but I don't really like the fabric. It's too papery for me, and it kind of looks crinkly. I definitely prefer it a bit more as a woven fabric. I love the VX21, and I would definitely go back to using that as a main fabric. The VX15 also works. It's nicer than the VX07, but it's still quite thin. So I think the VX21 is just a really nice, sturdy, woven kind of laminate fabric. And the 07 and 15 are just a bit too papery. And especially since this pack is just a day pack, it doesn't need to be that light. I mean, this is half a pound, it's 237 grams. It's ridiculous. It's almost too light. I've been putting things in this pack just to bulk it up, even though I don't need to carry anything. So it's almost as though I'm floating around with air on my back, which is a little bit unnecessary. It can weigh something. I mean, it's just like a super ultralight little pack right now. So that's it. Thank you for watching me make another backpack.